Millionaire rancher shocked to see Apache widow caring for his parents. Her life would change forever. The sun was already low in the sky when the rancher's black pickup turned off the highway and onto the long dirt road leading to the ranch. Dust rose behind the tires, hanging in the air like a quiet memory. He had driven this road thousands of times in his life, but today felt different. He had not told anyone he was coming. No assistants, no managers, no phone calls ahead. Just him, the land, and the parents he had not seen in months. From the outside, his life looked perfect. He was known as a millionaire rancher, a man who had turned dry land into profit and hard work into success. His name carried weight in business meetings and local gatherings. People respected him, some feared him, many admired him. But none of that mattered as much as the small white house at the end of the road, the house where his parents still lived, stubbornly refusing to move closer to town or into comfort. He parked near the old barn and stepped out of the truck. The familiar smell of hay, earth, and animals wrapped around him. It should have felt comforting. Instead, there was an uneasy feeling in his chest, like something was out of place. As he walked toward the house, he noticed small changes. The porch was cleaner than usual. The plants near the steps were watered and healthy. His mother had never been much for gardening. A soft light glowed through the front window and he could hear quiet voices inside. He paused. That was strange. His parents were elderly now. His father moved slowly and his mother tired easily. They didn't usually have visitors, especially not at this hour. He reached the door and gently pushed it open. Inside, the scene stopped him cold. A woman stood near the kitchen table, carefully helping his mother sit down. She spoke softly, her voice calm and steady. His father sat nearby, smiling faintly as he watched. The woman wore simple clothes. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her movements were respectful and careful. She moved like someone who knew the house well. The rancher froze. He had never seen her before. His mother looked up and noticed him first. Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with relief. "You're home," she said. The woman turned. Their eyes met. She looked startled but not afraid. She stepped back slightly and lowered her gaze in a respectful way. There was something quiet and strong about her presence, something that made the room feel still. "I didn't know you were coming," his mother said. "You should have called." "I wanted to surprise you," he replied, though his eyes never left the woman. "I didn't know you had help." His father cleared his throat. "This is the woman we told you about," he said gently. "The one helping us." The rancher frowned. "You never mentioned her name." The woman spoke before his parents could answer. "My name is Eliza," she said simply. "I help care for them." Her English was clear but careful, as if she chose each word with purpose. He nodded slowly. "I see." But he didn't see, not yet. Questions crowded his mind. Who was she? Why was she here? Why had no one told him? He was used to knowing everything that happened on his land, especially when it involved his parents. They sat down together for dinner, though the rancher barely touched his food. Eliza served quietly, making sure his parents were comfortable, checking their plates, refilling water. She moved with a natural ease, like this was not just work but something she took seriously. After the meal, his mother leaned back in her chair, tired but content. "Eliza, dear, you can head home. Thank you for today." Eliza nodded. "I'll come back early in the morning." As she reached for her bag, the rancher finally spoke. "Wait," she paused. "I'd like to talk," he said. His parents exchanged a look but said nothing. They stepped outside onto the porch. The evening air was cool and the sky was painted with fading orange light. "How long have you been working here?" he asked. 3 months, she replied. "And no one thought to tell me." She looked down. "Your parents didn't want to trouble you." That answer irritated him more than it should have. He had built his life on control and planning. Surprises were not something he enjoyed. "Where are you from?" he asked. "I am Apache," she said quietly. "I live nearby." He studied her face. There was no shame in her voice, no challenge either, just truth. "And why are you here?" he pressed. She met his eyes then, and something in her gaze made him pause. "Your parents needed help. I needed work. That is all." It sounded simple, but he sensed there was more. Later that night, after Eliza left, he sat with his parents in the living room. The old clock ticked softly in the background. "She's good to us," his mother said, as if reading his thoughts. "Better than anyone we've had before." "She treats us with respect," his father added. "She listens, she cares." "Why didn't you tell me?" the rancher asked. His mother sighed. "You're busy, always busy, and we didn't want you to think we were weak." The word stung. That night he lay awake in his childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't shake the image of Eliza standing in his kitchen, caring for his parents like they were her own. The next morning he woke early and went outside. Eliza was already there, helping his father walk along the porch. She smiled gently when she saw him, but said nothing. As the days passed, he stayed longer than planned. He watched quietly as Eliza worked. She never rushed. She never complained. She treated his parents with patience, dignity, and kindness. Still, something inside him resisted. He wasn't used to feeling uncertain on his own land. One afternoon, he overheard two ranch hands talking. "Did you hear?" one said. "That Apache woman lives near the house now." "Strange choice," the other replied. "Don't know why the old folks trust her so much." The rancher felt a tightness in his chest. He said nothing, but the words stayed with him. That evening he asked Eliza to sit down. "You've done good work," he said carefully. "But I like to know who's around my family," she nodded. "I understand." "There are rumors," he continued. She didn't react. "People talk," she said simply. "Why this job?" he asked again, softer this time. She hesitated, then spoke. "My husband passed away. I have children. I needed steady work. Your parents gave me respect, not pity." That answer stayed with him long after she left the room. For the first time in a long while, the rancher felt something shift inside him. He had built his success on strength and control, but here was a woman who carried loss and responsibility with quiet courage. As he looked around the house that night, his parents resting peacefully, the home filled with calm, he realized something important. This was not just help. This was the beginning of a change he never expected, and he didn't yet know how deeply it would affect all their lives. The rancher did not plan to stay another week, but days kept slipping by. Each morning began the same way. The sun rose over the wide land, and before he even stepped outside, he could hear quiet movement in the house. Eliza arrived early every day, sometimes before the birds had fully woken. She never announced herself loudly. She just came in, checked on his parents, and started her work as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He watched from a distance at first. She helped his father with small exercises, encouraging him gently, never pushing too hard. She reminded his mother to take her medicine not with orders but with care. She cooked simple meals, the kind that warmed the house and brought back memories of his childhood. His parents laughed more now. They spoke more. They seemed lighter. That unsettled him. He had spent years building comfort for them through money. Better doctors, better equipment, repairs to the house. Yet somehow this woman, who owned almost nothing, had given them something he never had: time. One afternoon he offered to drive Eliza home. She hesitated but agreed. The drive was quiet. The land stretched wide on both sides of the road, open and honest. "You don't talk much," he said finally. She smiled slightly. "I listen more." "Why?" "Because listening tells you what people need," she replied. He nodded, unsure what to say next. They reached a small house on the edge of the reservation land. It was modest but clean. Two children peeked through the window before running outside. "Mom," the older one said, hugging her. Eliza introduced them briefly. Her children were polite and curious, their eyes wide as they looked at the expensive truck. "They help me," she said quietly. "We help each other." That night, the rancher couldn't stop thinking about the difference between his world and hers. He had everything people dreamed of, yet his house felt empty. She had little, yet her home was full. Over the next few days, he began asking questions, not directly but gently. "How long were you married?" he asked one evening. 10 years, she answered. "What happened?" She paused. Illness. He didn't push further. She told him about growing up on the land, about learning respect from elders, about caring for family as a shared duty. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. There was no bitterness in her voice, only honesty. Meanwhile, the ranch hands continued to talk. Some were curious, some were uncomfortable. The rancher noticed how Eliza was treated differently when she walked through the property. She kept her head high, but he could see the effort it took. One day he overheard a comment that crossed a line. That evening he called everyone together. "Eliza works here because she earns it," he said firmly. "She is to be treated with the same respect as anyone else." Silence followed. Eliza looked at him, surprised. Later she thanked him. "You didn't have to." "Yes," he replied, "I did." That night his father spoke quietly. "You remind me of your mother when she was young, standing up when it matters." The words stayed with him. He began to understand that Eliza was not just caring for his parents. She was changing the rhythm of the ranch itself. People moved slower, spoke kinder, paid more attention. And for the first time, the rancher felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose beyond profit. As weeks passed, trust grew naturally without force. Eliza no longer seemed like a stranger in his home. She was part of its heartbeat. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she sat on the porch steps, watching the land. "This place has a long memory," she said softly. He looked out across the fields. "So do people," she nodded. Neither of them knew it yet, but the quiet bond forming between them was already reshaping their futures, slowly, deeply, and in ways neither could escape. The change on the ranch did not go unnoticed. People in nearby towns began to talk more openly now. At first, the talk stayed quiet, hidden behind polite smiles and passing comments. But as days turned into weeks, the words grew sharper. The rancher could feel it whenever he drove into town. Conversations stopped when he entered a room. Eyes followed him longer than before. He had lived with attention his whole life, but this felt different. One morning, while checking fence repairs with his manager, a neighbor rode up on horseback. The man nodded politely, then glanced toward the house. "I hear you've got new help living close to your parents," the neighbor said, his tone careful. "She works for them," the rancher replied. The neighbor hesitated. "Some folks are wondering if that's wise." The rancher felt his jaw tighten. "My parents are safe and well cared for. That's all that matters." The neighbor nodded again, but the message was clear. The rancher watched him ride away, dust rising behind the horse. For the first time, he understood that protecting someone did not always come easily, even when it was the right thing to do. That afternoon, Eliza arrived as usual. She greeted his parents warmly and began her routine. But the rancher noticed something different. She spoke less. Her smile came slower. Later, when they were alone in the kitchen, he asked gently, "Is something wrong?" She paused, then shook her head. "Nothing new." He didn't believe her, but he respected her silence. The tension reached the ranch hands too. Some were kind. Others kept their distance. A few tested boundaries with quiet remarks. Eliza never reacted. She focused on her work, moving through the day with steady calm. But calm did not mean unhurt. One evening, as the rancher returned late, he saw Eliza sitting alone on the porch steps. The light from inside the house spilled across the wooden boards, but she stayed in the shadows. "You don't have to stay late," he said. "I wanted to make sure your mother was comfortable," she replied. He sat down a few steps away. For a long moment, neither spoke. "People have been talking," he said finally. "Yes," she answered softly. "They always do. Does it bother you?" She looked out at the land. "I learned a long time ago that silence is sometimes safer than answers." Her words struck him harder than any argument could have. The next day brought a test neither of them expected. One of the ranch hands approached Eliza while she was helping the rancher's mother in the garden. His tone was not polite. It wasn't loud either. It was the kind of tone meant to belittle without witnesses. The rancher heard it from a distance. He walked over immediately. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The ranch hand shifted uncomfortably, just asking questions. "You don't ask questions like that here," the rancher said. "If you have an issue, you bring it to me." The man muttered an apology and walked away. Eliza said nothing, but her hands shook slightly as she returned to her work. That night, the rancher couldn't sleep. He realized that by allowing silence, he had allowed harm. Quiet harm, but harm all the same. The next morning, he called a meeting. Everyone gathered near the barn. The rancher stood in front of them, hands in his pockets, eyes steady. "This ranch was built on work and respect," he said. "Not rumors, not judgment. Anyone who works here deserves dignity. Anyone who can't accept that doesn't belong here." No one argued. Eliza heard about the meeting later from his parents. When she saw him that afternoon, she didn't thank him. She simply nodded, her eyes filled with something close to relief. Trust deepened after that, but trust also brought vulnerability. One afternoon, Eliza stayed late again. The rancher offered her tea. They sat at the kitchen table, the house quiet around them. "You could leave," he said suddenly. "Find work somewhere easier." She looked at him steadily. "I don't leave places where I'm needed," he swallowed. "What if this becomes too hard?" "It already has been," she replied. "But hard does not mean wrong." Her honesty unsettled him. Days later, his father fell ill while the rancher was away at a meeting in town. The weather turned suddenly, and the old man struggled to breathe. Eliza acted without panic. She called for help, kept him calm, followed instructions carefully until assistance arrived. When the rancher returned, fear hit him like a wave, but his father was stable, resting, alive. The doctor spoke quietly. If she hadn't acted so quickly, the outcome could have been different. The rancher found Eliza sitting beside his mother, holding her hand. "You saved him," he said, his voice rough. She shook her head. "I did what anyone should." "No," he replied, "not everyone would." Something changed in him at that moment. Gratitude turned into responsibility. Responsibility turned into resolve. From that day on, he no longer stood back. He stood beside her. He made changes on the ranch, clear rules, open expectations, fair treatment for everyone. Some people left, others stayed and adjusted. The ranch grew quieter but stronger. Eliza noticed the shift. "You didn't have to do all this," she said one evening. "I did," he answered. "For my parents, for you, for myself." She studied his face. "Change is not easy." "No," he said, "but it's necessary." As summer edged closer, the ranch felt different than it ever had. Not richer, not larger, just more human. Neither of them spoke of the future, but both felt it moving closer, shaped by choices already made. And deep down, the rancher knew this was no longer just about his parents' care. It was about who he chose to be when it truly mattered. The days after his father's illness felt heavier than before. Even though the doctor said he would recover with rest, the rancher could not shake the fear that had gripped him when he walked into that quiet house and saw his mother's worried face. For the first time, the truth stood clear in front of him. Time was no longer endless. His parents were aging, and no amount of money could slow that truth. Eliza stayed close during those days. She adjusted her routine without being asked. She watched his father carefully, helped him move, reminded him to rest, and spoke to him with calm reassurance. His mother leaned on her more than ever, trusting her not just with care but with comfort. The rancher noticed everything. One morning he found his mother and Eliza sitting together near the window, looking through an old photo album. His mother laughed softly, pointing at a faded picture from long ago. Eliza listened, her eyes warm and focused, as if every story mattered. That moment stayed with him. Later that day, he asked Eliza to walk with him along the fence line. The land stretched wide, golden under the sun. "You handled everything when I wasn't here," he said. She nodded. "Your parents trusted me. I did not want to fail them." "You didn't," he replied. "You went beyond what anyone could expect." She stopped walking and looked at him. "Caring for others is not beyond. It is basic." Her words were simple, but they carried truth. He realized then how differently they saw the world. For him, help often came with contracts and agreements. For her, it came from responsibility and heart. As his father regained strength, the rancher began to think about the future more seriously. Not just profits and land, but people. He watched how Eliza balanced her life between her children and his parents. She never complained, even when days were long and nights short. One evening, he offered her more hours and better pay. She listened quietly. "I accept," she said, "but not as charity." He nodded. "As respect." That answer mattered to both of them. Meanwhile, word of the rancher's changes spread. Some people praised him, others criticized him quietly. A few tried to test him, wondering if his stance would soften with time. It did not. He began attending local meetings again, but this time he spoke differently. He listened more. He spoke less. When topics of care, fairness, and opportunity came up, he addressed them directly, without anger, without apology. Back at the ranch, life settled into a steady rhythm. His father started walking farther each day. His mother smiled more easily. Laughter returned to the house. One afternoon, Eliza's children came to the ranch after school. They helped feed the animals and followed the rancher with curious questions. He showed them how the gates worked, how to read the land, how to understand animals by watching, not forcing. Eliza watched from a distance, surprised. "You're good with them," she said later. "They remind me of myself," he replied, "before I forgot how to slow down." That night after the children went home, the rancher sat alone on the porch. The sky was clear, filled with stars. Eliza joined him, keeping a respectful distance. "This land means a lot to you," she said. "It's my past," he replied, "and I thought it was my future." "And now?" she asked. He thought for a long moment. "Now I think it's part of something bigger." She smiled gently but said nothing. A few days later, another challenge arrived. His mother collapsed briefly while walking inside the house. It wasn't serious, but it was enough to remind everyone how fragile things had become. Eliza acted quickly again, steady and calm, guiding her to rest and calling the doctor. Afterward, the rancher sat with his parents. "We need a better plan," he said quietly. "More support. More structure." His mother reached for his hand. "We don't want to leave our home." "I know," he said. "You won't." That night he made a decision he had been avoiding. The next morning he asked Eliza to sit with him. "I want to make your role official," he said. "Long-term. With security." She listened carefully. "And your children," he continued. "They deserve stability, education, safety." Her eyes widened slightly. "You don't have to, I want to," he said firmly. "Not because I owe you, because you've earned it." Silence followed. Finally she spoke. "If I accept, it is because you see me as capable, not dependent." "I do," he replied. "I always have." She nodded slowly. "Then I accept." The agreement changed more than her life. It changed his. With her help, he reorganized the ranch schedule. He hired additional help so no one was overworked. He invested in training and fair systems. Productivity did not fall. It improved. People noticed. One evening, his father sat beside him on the porch. "You're doing right," the old man said, "even when it costs you comfort." The rancher looked out at the land. "I think comfort was the problem." As autumn approached, the ranch felt steadier than it had in years. Not perfect, not free of worry, but honest. Eliza continued her work with the same quiet strength, but now there was ease in her steps. Her children laughed more. His parents rested better. The rancher began to understand that true wealth was not measured by land or money, but by the lives held together through care and respect. And though none of them spoke it aloud, all of them felt it. Something lasting had taken root, something no one could undo. The seasons changed slowly. almost quietly, as if the land itself was giving the family time to adjust. Autumn settled over the ranch with cool mornings and soft evenings. The trees near the house turned warm shades of gold and brown. The air felt calmer now, lighter than it had in years. The rancher noticed the difference in small ways. His father walked with more confidence, leaning less on his cane. His mother slept through the night without waking in worry. The house no longer felt like a place waiting for loss. It felt alive again. Eliza remained a steady presence. She arrived each morning with the same quiet respect she always had, but now there was comfort in her steps. She belonged here, not as an outsider, not as a favor, but as someone trusted and valued. Her children visited more often. They did their homework at the kitchen table while Eliza prepared meals. His mother helped them with reading. His father told them old stories about the ranch, about storms survived and hard winters overcome. The children listened with wide eyes, learning not just about the land, but about patience and resilience. The rancher watched all of this with a sense of wonder. One evening after a long day, he sat with Eliza on the porch. The sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky with soft colors. "You've changed this place," he said quietly. She shook her head. "People change places. Places do not change people," he smiled. "Then you've changed us." She looked at him, thoughtful. "You were ready to see it." Those words stayed with him. In town, opinions began to shift. People noticed the ranch running smoother than before. They noticed how workers stayed longer, how fewer conflicts arose, how the land seemed better cared for. Some who once doubted him now nodded with respect. One afternoon, a local reporter asked to speak with him about his business success. The rancher agreed, but when the conversation turned to profits, he redirected it. "This ranch succeeds because people here are treated with fairness," he said. "Care is not weakness, it's strength." The article spread quickly. Some praised him, some argued. He didn't mind either way. What mattered was the truth behind his words. At home, his parents grew closer to Eliza than ever. His mother often said, "She feels like family." His father simply nodded in agreement. One quiet night, his father called him to his side. "You've done well," the old man said, "not just for us but for yourself." The rancher felt emotion rise in his chest. "I wish I had learned sooner." "You learned when it mattered," his father replied. As winter approached, Eliza faced a choice of her own. A distant relative offered her work elsewhere, closer to a larger town. It meant opportunity, but also leaving the place that had become her foundation. She thought carefully before speaking to the rancher. "I wanted you to hear it from me first," she said. He listened without interruption. When she finished, he nodded. "You should choose what's best for your children." She studied his face. "This is what's best." Her answer carried weight. It was not made from fear or need, but from certainty. Winter came gently. Snow dusted the land and the ranch slowed down. Inside the house, warmth filled every room. Meals were shared. Stories were told. Laughter echoed softly against old walls. One evening, as they gathered near the fire, the rancher realized something important. This was the life he had been working toward without knowing it. Not success measured by numbers, but meaning measured by connection. Months later, his parents' health remained stable. Not perfect, but steady. The fear that once ruled the house no longer held power. There was trust now, routine, peace. The rancher made plans for the future with clarity. He set aside funds for care, education, and support. He trained younger workers to lead with fairness. He thought beyond his own lifetime, something he had never done before. Eliza continued to guide quietly, never seeking praise. Her children grew confident and hopeful. They spoke of dreams without fear. One spring morning, as the land bloomed again, the rancher stood at the fence and looked across the fields. Eliza joined him. "Do you ever regret staying?" he asked. "No," she replied. "This place gave my children safety. It gave me dignity," he nodded. "It gave me purpose." They stood in silence, comfortable and calm. The ranch was no longer just a business. It was a shared responsibility. A home built not only on land but on trust, care, and respect. And though life would always bring challenges, they now faced them together. That was the true change. Not sudden, not loud, but lasting. And it would carry them forward, long after the seasons continued their quiet turn.